All right. Hi, I'm Tim Zubizarreta. I'm the managing editor of JURIST. JURIST is a nonprofit legal news website that has been following the bar exam and Black Lives Matter and the election and lots of other legal-oriented topics. But in particular, we've been following the bar exam, and we really wanted to provide this panel as a place to talk about some other alternative career paths to do with your JD. And we're so happy to have three excellent panelists with us here tonight to talk about that. So I'm going to go ahead and let each of them introduce themselves, starting with Jess.
Hey all, I'm Jess. I'm a current 3L at Santa Clara University School of Law. I'm also a legal policy specialist at Google. Just as a kind of a disclaimer, my opinions, they are of my own. They are not reflective of Google or any of my past employers. Previously I worked for a think tank, tech policy think tank in DC called Tech Freedom. Before that, I was a legal intern for Twitter. And now I'm a Section 230 expert and scholar, and I do a lot of writing and speaking about Section 230 and content moderation, that kind of work.
Tierra, do you want to go next?
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Tierra Bradford. Similar to Jess, my comments are my own. And don't have to do my organization. Currently, I am policy manager for a nonprofit grassroots organization called Common Cause. And soon I will be a criminal justice policy advocate for the ACLU in Pennsylvania. And before that, I worked in Common Cause's national office as a legal fellow, and that was right after law school. We work on a lot of stuff like elections and redistricting and campaign finance, and ethics and accountability in government and things of that nature. And I also graduated from Pitt in 2018.
Claire?
So I am a 2017 graduate from University of South Carolina School of Law. I currently work as a trust officer in a community bank. And when I saw everything going on with the bar exam this year, I started kind of making a large document of other JD jobs just from people I've met on Twitter. So we'll have that accessible for everybody as well.
Yeah, so thank you to our three panelists. So like I said, I wanted to start by kind of talking a little bit about what JD Advantage jobs are. So JD Advantage jobs are basically any job it's jobs where having a JD helps you significantly in that role. Having JDs do those roles can provide more expertise than your typical specialist, but they don't require the bar exam. They don't require licensure. It's legal work, but it's not practicing law. So that being said, I wanted to start by asking all three of you, first for a second, like I said before, we will take questions from the chat. You can feel free to send questions in the chat, or you can feel free to, use the reactions to raise your hand and such. I will try to be watching for that. We also have a number of questions that were sent in already, so we'll kind of start with some of those. So first I wanted to ask, why did you all choose JD Advantage jobs? Was this like a conscious choice that you knew you didn't want to go the traditional lawyer route, or did you, kind of find this as you went? Anyone in particular want to start?
I can jump in.
Sure.
So I actually came to law school super niche, to be honest. So most students will come to law school and thinking, I want to be a lawyer. And usually you're told lawyers are generalists and you might be interested in an area of law, but no one really comes to law school and says, I'm really interested in this one specific law in this field. That's what actually happened to me. I graduated computer science. I got really interested in technology. I've always been really interested in the internet. And I happened upon the law that created the internet, Section 230. And I fell in love with it because it's the free speech law of the internet. It's fascinating. The case law around it is fascinating. And I fell in love with it before law school. So I came to law school thinking I'm going to be a Section 230 expert. That's what I wanted to do. And what I thought that meant is that I wanted to be an internet lawyer. I didn't really figure out that being an internet lawyer entails being kind of an internet law generalist until I had my first 1L summer internship at Twitter, where I was an intern in their legal department. And I realized near the end of the summer that it wasn't that great. It was an excellent internship, but it wasn't that great of a fit for me because there were so many things that I didn't enjoy doing. You know, they had me working on commercial contracts, for example. That's not Section 230 work. I was bored. And I had realized when I was working at Twitter that I found myself gravitating towards the public policy and the trust and safety folks more because they were working on Section 230 and content moderation related issues. They needed Section 230 experts, and my expertise was fitting in perfectly there. So when I finished my internship, I kind of had this epiphany and realized like, oh my God, I don't want to be an in-house counsel. I don't want to be working at a law firm. I don't want all of these different issue areas. I want to do one specific thing in the field of internet law. And that's when I realized, okay, well, Section 230 and content moderation, that's trust and safety. I really belong in a legal, business, and engineering kind of role that allows me to do exactly what I want and be an expert in an area that I'm particularly fascinated about. So that's for me how I ended up going from the generalist path, realizing I didn't fit, and then ended up kind of creating my own sort of job path around this one very specific law and issue area that I was interested in.
I can go next. And I guess what I have to say kind of highlights the importance of internships and externships and making sure you take advantage of those when you're trying to figure out what you want to do. Because I was in law school, I think my 2L year had just finished, and I was starting the summer work for my internship with the Abolitionist Law Center. And it was everything that I thought I wanted to do, right? Because I was interested in criminal justice reform and all that stuff. But as I was going along and working my internship, I was just like, I don't know if I really enjoy working on specific cases and like having clients. Like I was more interested in doing research, and I kind of was interested in fixing the laws because we would have these issues with our clients, and it was like, well, this law is actually what's really messed up. Like I want to change that. I don't want to necessarily work on this particular case, even though those cases were so important. And then also I was considering applying for the Equal Justice Works. Equal Justice Works has like a program where you apply the summer after your 2L year, and then you work on your application all your 3L year, and then they like match you with a nonprofit organization. And you guys should look into that if you're interested. It's a really good opportunity, but when you're coming up with what you want your application to be, and you talk about the things you would do with your fellowship, when I was being advised on my application, my advisor was like, hey, you didn't mention anything about working with clients or representing anybody like in the courtroom. And I was like, oh yeah, because I don't really want to do that. And so that kind of is what led me to looking into JD Advantage and looking into what else I could be doing. And now I work on like policy issues and like lobbying and that type of stuff. So that's kind of how I figured out I wanted to do JD Advantage.
So my story is a little more sad than the other ladies. I actually graduated in 2017, sat for South Carolina's second UBE 3 different times, missed it by 1 point once, and then, a few other points some other times. But I was clerking at the time, really had thought, I want to be a trial lawyer, I want to be in the courtroom. And when that didn't happen, I didn't know anyone else who had a JD Advantage job or anyone who was really using their law degree for anything beyond being a barred attorney. So I reached out to some people on Twitter, and I had some mentors kind of reach out to me and kind of fell into my job as a trust officer. And that's when I realized that there's this whole incredible world of jobs that pay pretty well and have much better hours than a lot of our colleagues who are working in big law or who are doing public interest. And so then it's kind of become a project of mine, or something I'm really interested in, is letting people know that there are these opportunities. And then when 2020 bar started happening, I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that you can be a trust officer, you can work in compliance. There's so much you can do that's not going to diminish your law degree, and where your law degree is going to make you shine and make the people you work for very pleased to have you on board. So I'm really excited that we are kind of opening the conversation up for JD Advantage work.
All right. I think a good place to go from here is, what recommendations do you have for how people can find these kind of jobs? What's the best way to find a JD Advantage job?
Ask people. I didn't know this existed until a colleague mentioned that he had a friend that worked as a trust officer. And so you just have to ask people. And when I was compiling the JD Megadoc, there's a lot of good search terms that you can use on these like job websites that are going to find you these JD preferred jobs, because a lot of them don't come up when you just search JD preferred. So I think a lot of it is just in how you're looking for it and just asking people.
+1 to that, absolutely. And the spreadsheet, or the list of resources you have, is incredible, by the way. So that, go to stuff like that as well. I'm going to throw out, just 100% agree, informational interviews is how I kind of figured out JD Advantage was even a thing. And I'll throw out one more tip that I used. Figure out maybe figure out the job first, like where it is you kind of want to be. So I knew that like I said, I knew I wanted to be in trust and safety. So when I figured out, okay, trust and safety is where I want to be, I started learning sort of the lingo of what trust and safety is. A lot of like what Claire was saying, which is, you're not going to type in JD Advantage and find that role. That's not how it's going to work. So I started realizing that trust and safety, they need like legal policy specialists, legal analysts, internet policy. So what I actually did was, if you go to Google Careers, and this is a little confusing because I don't mean that careers at Google. Google has like a jobs page in search. So if you go there, at the top right side of the screen, there's like an alarm bell. You can set up notifications for specific terms on Google Jobs. So I set up terms for trust and safety, policy specialist, full-time policy specialist, legal policy specialist, legal intern, policy intern, internet law, public policy, like all of those terms. Set up daily keyword alerts, and then set California, where I wanted to work. And I would get emailed every single day when a job that hit one of those keywords popped up into my queue. And I would just sit there. For most of it, what I would do is I would sit there and I would read the descriptions of all the jobs that would come through. I wouldn't even be thinking about applying. I just wanted to know what the jobs were like and kind of track what the patterns were, like what kind of skills they were looking for. Just kind of sat there and read those through, spent about a year doing that, and then realized I really wanted to work at Google. And so I just started narrowing my list down even more for those keywords. I specifically knew I wanted to be a policy specialist at Google, set up my keyword filters for that. And then I just started applying to every single policy specialist job that came out for Google until finally one hit.
Yeah, I wish I had more concrete advice, because I kind of happened into my first JD Advantage position, and I was just doing a lot of job searching the summer after I finished law school, and I was doing job search based on like the topic area I was interested in, and not necessarily like it had to be an attorney position. And like Idealist, for example, is a really great place to look for positions. And there are a lot of opportunities where, I mean, if you're like me and you're interested in like public service and like criminal justice reform or some type of other advocacy, is a great place to look. But there are a lot of positions where, a JD could be helpful, and it may not even say JD Advantage or JD Preferred in the title, but you can just read the description and you realize, oh, my JD would help me with this because they need someone who has great writing experience or research experience or whatever. So I think just keeping your mind open when you're looking at job opportunities and looking at things that you're actually interested in. And also, I mean, I don't know where you all are located, but being maybe if you're able to relocate, because I was in Pittsburgh when I was first looking for jobs, and then it just kind of clicked for me that like, probably if I want something that I'm thinking about doing, I should probably look into going to DC. So I actually ended up going to DC the summer after law school, because there's just a lot of public interest service type of positions like that in DC. So yeah, that's my advice.
So because these jobs can sometimes be harder to find, and one of the keys can be building a network, and some of you kind of alluded to this a little bit. So what advice do you have in terms of like building a network and finding connections, particularly when you might be looking at an industry where you don't really have those contacts initially?
I mean, mine's Twitter has been incredibly helpful. That's how I found all of you. But I think there are some really great resources out there, because even when I tweeted like, hey, who has a JD Advantage job? Like, let's talk about it. I got hundreds of responses. So there are people and they want to answer your questions. And so maybe just look around on law Twitter. I don't find LinkedIn to be as helpful with this kind of thing. I don't know how the others are. Yeah. And I think people are just more ready to be, to talk to you about their personal experiences when it is Twitter or something a little bit less like professional. And if y'all are interested in some of the, like some specific categories, you can let me know and I can kind of try to link you up with some of the people who I spoke with, who may be interested in sharing some of their experiences. So just let me know.
100% plus one to that. Twitter is exactly how I built my network. It wasn't LinkedIn, although I have a LinkedIn, but I'm really bad at checking it. But yes, Twitter is amazing for networking. It's where I built my entire internet law and technology policy network. Other advice I would give is for those of you that are still in law school, and even if you're not still in law school, if you have a favorite professor or somebody who like you've worked with before at the law school, my advisor has done an amazing job in just making introductions for me. And that's kind of how that helped my network grow. The last thing I'll point out is if there is anyone on this call that's really interested in internet law or technology, law and policy, please let me know, because I do have a super large network and I am super happy to make introductions because so many people did it for me. I don't mind doing it for you. So just hit me up on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, wherever. I'm pretty public.
Yeah, I'll also say that Twitter is a great place for these things. And I'll say that the four of us are all active on Twitter, so you can find us all there and connect with us directly if you have more specific questions. So let's see. This is kind of a general question, but well, actually, so this is kind of a general question. Yeah. Do any of you know anything about positions for foreign trained lawyers? A lot of people come here for LLMs or for various other, come here from foreign countries having been legally trained there. Do you know anything about getting JD Advantage jobs for foreign trained lawyers? It's okay if the answer is no. I'm just...
We do have a lot of JD Advantage roles for, I guess, LLMs or those who have gotten law degrees elsewhere at Google and in trust and safety as well. So that's definitely a thing. And it's, again, I can really only speak to like tech law because that's just what my specialty is. But I'll point out that, if you're interested in tech or the internet is global. So we need people who are subject matter experts in the internet law and in local laws in whatever countries that, we're operating in. So it's definitely something that is an option at Google. And I highly recommend taking a look at some of our open positions in trust and safety if you're interested.
I don't really see why there would be any issues if you were in the finance sector, because they really just want someone who has that kind of comprehensive experience with, legal terminology. And just a basic understanding of how the world works. So I think a foreign trained attorney or foreign trained JD, I don't see why that would be an issue in my sector, at least in finance and trust and estates.
Yeah, I guess I'll kind of answer this question in like the last question, because the way that I built my network, I guess you could say, is I was open to, and this can be kind of controversial because I know most people want to be paid for internships. I think people should be paid for internships and when they volunteer. However, when I first got to DC, I did volunteer at the place I was at, and then it turned into a paid thing and blah, blah, blah. So I guess that same advice could be used if you have a foreign JD. Is just kind of trying to get to know people, maybe volunteering places. But again, just like for the financial sector, I don't see how that could be a barrier for you, because they're just looking for, especially in public interest, they're just looking for people who are passionate about the issue and are ready to do the work and are competent. And if you're those things, then you should be fine.
I do want to reiterate, because we've had a number of people join over the last couple minutes. You can feel free to ask us questions in the chat and we'll be watching to respond to those. You can also feel free to try to use the reactions to like raise your hand if you'd like to ask it, you know, if you'd like to unmute and ask it. We're open to either one. So we got a question at one point about there's a perception that JD Advantage jobs are very often tech related, and people wonder, and so I guess I would ask, do you think that's really true? And even if there are tech related ones, do you inherently need knowledge in tech, or I'll expand it and say in the financial sector or in policy, to be able to get JD Advantage jobs in those areas?
My first day of work, I Googled what a CD was. So you do not need any sort of background. And your JD is worth it just to have that and say, I went to law school. People don't understand law school at all. So just to be like, yeah, I'm a law school grad. They're like, oh, you know everything. Then I'm like, sure. And so I really think, especially based on gathering the materials I gathered for that Google Doc, it is so not tech and finance only. And that's kind of what I had been thinking. But there were people who were working for sports teams and universities and public schools. I mean, there's so many opportunities out there for JDs. And so it's definitely not just tech, it's definitely not just finance. And I really feel like if you have a JD, your company will likely work with you to get the training you need. My company has worked with me to get my broker's license, all the series. But so your company will work with you, because you having a law degree is an advantage to them, because that makes their firm look better, or whatever bank or whatever it is. And it makes clients trust you more. So I think that most companies will work with you, or most of these opportunities will work with you to get you the niche experience you need.
Yeah, speaking as someone who works for a tech company, I did graduate computer science, but I will tell you straight up, I have not used my computer science degree really for anything tech related, except to gain clout with the engineers at Google. My role, this is what I found the most surprising about JD Advantage, and I'm not really sure why I found it surprising, but my role is incredibly heavy legal. I have to know internet law cold in my role, and I am expected to be an internet law expert. That is the number one priority in this role. And the interesting thing about that is I find myself a lot of the time having to advise counsel, and you think it'd be the other way around, you know, but it goes back to what I was saying before, which is where counsel they're more generalists, and they've got to know a broad array of things, but they don't deep dive into any of the niche areas of the law. I am expected to be an expert on specific areas in internet law and on specific products that I advise on. And then I'm expected to advise counsel on the ways in which I think, ways in which we should go, directions of where we should go with our products as well. So the primary is legal. And I've heard from other JD Advantage candidates that that's kind of the case for a lot of folks that are working in tech and JD Advantage, is you are expected to know the law cold first. And then the second part of it is policy and business for me. I almost kind of, sometimes I almost wish I had like an MBA, because there's a lot of business terminology that I don't have, that I'm not, spun up on yet. I'm learning as I go. It's not a requirement, but it's heavy business. If you're a policy wonk, somebody that can think through these kind of big problems, that's always something that's really great. And then engineering for me is kind of the last priority. And the only time I'm really using my like engineering side is when I'm just negotiating with engineers. When I know I need a feature done, or I need something built out for a product, I at least know that, hey, I need to let engineers know ahead of time, way in advance, because they can't, oh, I don't know, my camera just went out. I need to let engineers know, way in advance that they can't just spin up and build these features magically. They need 6 months or a year or whatever, and they appreciate that. They're the ones who are the engineers. Their job is to build the products. Your job in JD Advantage is to know when to bring people in, when to bring in counsel, really understand that attorney-client privilege, those rules, and to know your area of law that you are being brought in as an expert.
I guess really quickly, I'll just say, I do nothing with tech. I'm a policy advocate. I work on, election stuff now, and I'll be working on criminal justice stuff. And again, when it comes to policy, policy can mean like thousands or hundreds or whatever different issue areas. So that really, it's definitely not just a tech thing. Also, like, you just gotta, if there's something that you want to do, you just kind of got to try and put yourself out there and go after it regardless. And again, even if it doesn't mention anything about JD Advantage or JD Preferred, you could still, try and apply and do it. I hope that's helpful.
We got a couple questions in here about what JD Advantage careers are like, because there's the conventional perception of law careers where you're working very long hours, you're working in very intense competitive environments. So what are your typical working days like? What is what kind of work-life balance do you have in JD Advantage?
I'll go ahead and say that I probably have the easiest time, because it does sound like Tierra and Jess are very busy. I think that working in finance, I work for a bank, so it is 8:30 to 5. You get banking holidays, and I don't usually respond to emails after 5 or anything on the weekends. So I have my friends who are working in big law, making similar salary, and they're working, they've always got their computer, always got their phone on them. And so I feel like there is kind of an extra advantage to a JD Advantage job, is that you may be able to find a better work-life balance, especially if you were to have like a family, or, I'm a part of a startup right now, and I do stand-up comedy, and I have like so many other things going on that I don't think I would be able to do if I had followed a traditional legal path. So I think, and I'm sure Jess and Tierra probably have a different experience, but especially in the finance world, you can really take it a little easier, or at least that's my experience.
Pretty similar to Claire, actually. I love working for Google, not to be a Google shill here today, but they are very work hard, play hard. So the kind of overall vibe is you get your work done. Doesn't matter when it is, you just get your work done. And it's, typical, it's pretty typical, like 9 to 5. I would say it's a pretty good work-life balance, although things are really weird with COVID. So it's kind of hard to figure out like what work-life balance even is these days. But I'm full-time law school and full-time Google. And I'm still finding a way to make it work. So no complaints on my side, +1 to whatever, to everything that Claire was saying.
So for me, I think it depends. For example, I was working during Maryland's legislative session, and their session is from January to beginning of May. Not this year because of COVID, but usually it's from beginning of January to May. And those hours can be kind of long because the way it's set up, like you're constantly in the House and the Senate building and in Annapolis, and you're kind of like running around chasing legislators, working on testimony, doing research when you need it, being on coalition meeting calls. So it can be pretty intense, and it can be like longer than your average 8-hour day. But then after session, you know, like during the summer, sometimes it's kind of a lull and you have like a lighter schedule. I mean, before I even got in my office, they used to take like Fridays off, like during the summer. So especially when it's a nonprofit, it can be kind of, your schedule can be kind of flexible based on you, as long as you're getting the work done that you need to get done. But if you have like if you have some type of immediate response thing that you need to do, like for example, General Assembly session, then your hours could be longer. Yeah, that's my experience for now, I think. So it just kind of depends.
So I want to shift the conversation a little bit to Jackie's question, which was to Jackie's question, which was, do you feel like you're treated differently than the lawyers in your organization or looked down on by practicing lawyers? Is there some stigma to JD Advantage for not being a real lawyer or something like that?
I really love this question. This was something I was seriously worried about coming into Google. I think it's company specific, by the way. It has been so not the case. I mean, I can't even begin to describe it. It's been so not the case. My product counsel that I work with are wonderful. They rely on me. I am constantly I've had moments where I'll almost like email back and be like, shouldn't you know the answer to this? Like, why are you asking me this? They rely on us as the experts in our products, and as experts in internet law as well. So I have a very good relationship with my counsel. Like I said, they're constant, and any good counsel, like they understand what their role is. Their role is advisor. So they're kind of the end of the line when it comes to things that we're working on. They sign off on what we come up with, but they're not in the day-to-day meetings, noodling through some of the problems that we go through. They're not, becoming the product experts that some of us are, every single day. So when they have questions, they loop us in. I find a lot of my time advising my product counsel. I've never felt like they look down on me. We have a very good relationship. It's very symbiotic across the entire organization. And again, I think that's just kind of company specific. I mean, Google has a very collaborative working environment. Now, outside of Google, I have to say, like, yeah, I've had my peers in law school. They're kind of, I've gotten the questions of like, why did you sell out? Or like, didn't you kind of just take the easy path? Like, or JD Advantage is for people who can't get legal jobs. I'll just be honest, that is the stigma kind of outside of when you work for a company. And I kind of flip around at the end of the day. And something that Claire had said, I make the same amount as you, and I have better work-life balance, and I have a higher cap for the amount of money that I can make too. So you do you, man. Like that's usually how I come back at it.
Jumping off of that, I am coming in with a different experience from Tierra and Jess. Like, did intend to become barred and have not yet been successful. So my main reaction is just, and Tim, I'm sorry, I know you're recording this, but like, fuck them. Like, it's not their business. If they think you sold out or they don't think you're a real lawyer, it doesn't matter. You have a job. And also, once you get out of that kind of, and I don't believe that all law school environments are toxic, and nor do I necessarily believe that mine was, but it was very small and very, you have to get the big law job. You have to get these on-campus interviews. You have to do this. If you don't do this, you're a failure, and blah, blah, blah. And once I failed the bar, I realized that the world is so much bigger than law school, and nobody cares except for maybe the people you went to law school with, and they probably suck anyway. So it just doesn't matter. I mean, if anyone wants to come to me and it happens on Twitter every day, people are like, oh, your handle's Nasty Woman at Law and you don't even practice law. And I'm like, well, I mean, it's not your business, and I make money and I get to do all the things I want to do. And so, yeah, just I don't think you need to care about other people's opinions about that kind of thing. Like you have the same degree that they have. You are just as valid, and whatever you do with your career is just as important. And honestly, they're just sitting there reviewing the same documents about a really boring car accident, working for an insurance company, like depressed as hell. So who cares? Who cares what they think?
And
Sorry.
I'll say you should all feel free to be candid here. I asked that question knowing that it is to some degree kind of an offensive thing for people to say, and it's very much not true. So go ahead, Tierra.
I actually have a mixture experience, Claire, because I actually did take the bar because my advisor in law school, like even though I was leaning towards like I didn't really want to be an attorney, most likely your advisors in law school are going to be like, well, you should take the bar just in case. You should take the bar just in case of that question. Like, what if people question your credibility? And then I failed it by like 4 points or something like that. And I was just like, you got to be kidding me. Like the whole point, I just wanted to get this over with so I wouldn't have to worry about it ever again. And even though I was, I did what I was supposed to do when I was taking the bar and I did all the hours I was supposed to put in, my heart wasn't really in it because I knew I didn't really want to be an attorney. And so I had to think to myself, is it worth it to kind of put a pause on what I was doing? Because when I found out my bar results, I was a legal fellow already at the place and they had already offered to start paying me and I was already on the path. And I was like, is it worth it for me to drop everything to take this bar again, to prove something to people who I don't really care about? Or do I just want to keep doing what I'm doing and going down that path? And so, yeah, I kind of agree with Claire, like, fuck other people. Just do what you want to do. If you don't want to be an attorney and you know what it is you want to do, if you take the bar, if you decide not to take the bar, you just got to be confident in that. And you should probably, and not to get too like therapist-y on you, but like you should probably think about like why you care so much about like what other people have to say if you already know what you want to do and the type of life you want to live.
I have to add in one thing, just because I see some of my Santa Clara Law colleagues on here. They are all wonderful. Everyone at Santa Clara Law has been incredibly supportive of my path. And this is not a subtweet at any of you. But, people on the internet can be mean, and that's more what I was getting at. But go Broncos. I love my school.
So originally, Miracle Jones was listed on the panel. She had a conflict early on, but she was able to both first graciously invite Tierra to join us, and we're so grateful for that. But Miracle herself is also able to join the panel. So, and she heard this question and wanted an opportunity to respond to it. So I was going to invite Miracle to join us too, and comment.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm like actually in the office. I do policy and advocacy law at my job. And I say law because I'm not an attorney and I still read legislation. I still talk to attorneys. I still negotiate, argue stuff all the time with other attorneys. Nobody cares. Literally nobody outside of the legal field cares whether or not you have taken the bar or sworn in. The minute they find out you're a 1L, people just assume you're a lawyer, right? So please don't like stress out about anything. What I would say, I decided that I really didn't want to be an attorney, and I have actually passed the bar, and I really felt more relieved when I failed than when I passed the bar, because I was like, oh crap, now I actually have to do this thing. And law isn't for everyone. It's more important for you to find out what you can do, because you can do immigration work without being a sworn in attorney. You can help people do Social Security claims without being a sworn in. There's so many things that you can do, and nobody really looks down on you, because we're all, especially in the nonprofit circles, everybody's in the same circle. We're in the same community, in the same boards, at the same advocacy seats. There really isn't a difference. So you're totally like fine. And what the benefit of JD Advantage is, you also have more diversity of the type of work you can do and when you can do it, the diversity of your hours. From my perspective, you actually get sometimes more competitive salaries depending on the places that you're going, because a lot of places don't want to pay for an attorney because they don't want to do the billable hours, but they still want somebody to read legislation or read over contracts. And you can still do that in a variety of ways at corporate jobs as well. You can also do document review if you really want to see if the legal field is something that you want to do. Once you graduate, you can do document review. You can help people do legal prep. There's so many things that you can do with your degree that does not require doing the bar. And I will say also, the bar is super expensive. I know for me, I actually delayed taking the bar because I couldn't afford not work for 2.5 months. And so you have to just do what is best for you and don't let anyone else's vision or definition of success define you. And how do you find your... Oh, because you're not giving legal advice. Like it's very, you're not doing legal advice. If you have to read a contract, you're reading a contract. And you can tell people, I don't think this is a good contract. I don't think it's a bad contract. You're not telling them about the law, right? The law is very, very clear about what practicing legal advice is. A lot of people just want the negotiation and the skill set that comes from law school because most people are not going to end up in court. And if they're going to end up in court, they have attorneys for that they will consult. But a lot of stuff you can do, especially with employment law, when you're reading contracts, when you're traveling. Like my cousin, she read contracts, she traveled overseas to make sure that people were keeping their whatever businesses they were doing in line with federal trade laws. You don't have to be barred for that. So you're not giving people legal advice and you're not standing up in court and you're not filing any legal documents. So that's the difference.
Yeah, I just want to clarify for people who might be watching this later, if you didn't see that question, that was Susan asked, how do you do that job that Miracle was describing without being accused of practicing law without a license? So moving on from that for our last, little bit of time here, is it feasible for law grads to go straight into JD Advantage jobs, or do you have to work a traditional legal job first?
I went straight into JD Advantage while still in law school. Yeah, I mean, if you have an expertise in something, if you have an area that you're interested in, they just want people, and I don't know about other places, but they just want people who are good at their job and they want people who can get things done. So, I don't see what working at, working at a law firm to go in-house, you're not going to be in-house counsel. So I don't see where, that firm experience would be super required. So I'm going to say no as the kind of short way of answering that.
Actually, my colleague in the trust office, he did work for an estate planning attorney for a while. And if nothing else, it's been almost a detriment to him rather than I went from judicial clerking straight into this. And I've learned how to do trust work through being a trust officer rather than learning it through writing trust, which are both very different processes. So I definitely think in some of these jobs, these JD Advantage jobs, it can be detrimental to have, you're trying to unlearn the bad stuff you learned at the firm. So I really think that there's no reason, if you know you want to do a JD Advantage job, there's no reason to waste your time in a law firm or doing a legal job. And again, it just seems almost as if it's for like credibility to tell people that you're a lawyer. So I don't really see the need for it. And I think you can absolutely do it without.
Yeah, I will remind everybody of what Miracle just said about how expensive the bar is, and also how they encourage you not to work during the bar. And I actually took out a personal loan while I was taking the bar, and it was like $4,000 or something crazy. I don't know. So you have to think about if that's really worth it. But I will say, if you are on the fence and you're not sure about JD Advantage, then I think I would go ahead and move forward with like taking the bar and maybe even trying to practice. Like if you're just If you're not sure and there is something you are interested in doing as an attorney, then maybe you should just go ahead and try it because, you know, you're fresh out of law school. It makes sense to just take the bar. But other than that, if you think that you just want to be an attorney just to say that you practiced, I think that's a waste of time, and going straight out is fine. And, you know, I'm straight out, like I've been doing this for a couple of years and I haven't had an issue yet.
Yeah, I agree. I did JD Advantage straight out, but I also say both T and I, we basically did clinics and externships while we were in law school. And I have more court experience than a lot of other attorneys just for what I did my 2 and 3L year than what some attorneys have done their whole entire lives. So you can get experience different ways, but I will also say that experience is what you're going to need most. Whether you're a lawyer or you're doing JD Advantage, most people want to know how fast you're going to be able to pick up information, how fast are you going to be able to articulate information, how quick are you going to be able to think on your feet. So outside of just taking the bar, they're just going to know what your they want to know what your skill sets are and how that's going to be an asset to your organization. If you're going to take the bar, I would suggest A, getting a therapist, and B, trying to start saving up funds, because you really are not supposed to work. I unfortunately worked both times that I took the bar, but it's a lot to do. And so you have to think about what you want to do. If people are hiring, I know it's the pandemic right now, so I don't know if corporations are on a hiring freeze. I know some places are saying that you don't have to take the bar. You may have to take the bar in 2021 or 2022. So you can look into getting some type of legal experience now to figure out this is what you want. And if not, get the degree and go to JD Advantage.
Yeah, I'll say, I knew Jess's background, Jess is a 3L like I am, so I knew that she was doing it while still in law school, but I felt obligated to ask because even this year I've had professors tell me to do JD Advantage, you have to first do, X amount of time at a firm or whatever. There was another question about advancement in JD Advantage careers. Is there career advancement in the roles you're in? Do you have to take on more of a business role or something like that? What kind of advancement is open to you?
You can do whatever you want. I've kind of found, at least at Google, I'm a policy analyst or a policy specialist right now, but there's many different levels of policy specialist. You can go into public policy. You can go and maybe do litigation support. There's really, that's the cool thing about JD Advantage is, if you get bored with one thing, you can go you can kind of laterally go to something else, whatever you're sort of interested in. So, we have kind of the same promotion ladder as you would typically expect from any other major company. So there's tons and tons of good career trajectory, I think, at least in trust and safety and public policy type roles.
For me, at least, there are a couple of different outside certifications. Like I mentioned previously, you can get your brokerage licenses, you could get your financial advisor license. I mean, there's so many opportunities that aren't nearly as difficult as the bar or as expensive as the bar that your company will probably pay for to get you to a point where you can find, I really think that JD Advantage is kind of limitless. You're not going to have to go through that first year firm thing and associate partner track. You just work and then you get promoted, and for my job, I get commissions as well. So it's really not a struggle for me, at least.
As someone who works in nonprofit, there's definitely room for advancement. I'll just say, right now, I do policy advocacy. I'm considered a policy advocate. And in my current role, I'm policy manager. And then I want to move up to be either a policy counsel, which I assume you take on more responsibility, or maybe even direct a program at a nonprofit. So maybe I just want to direct all the criminal justice work or direct a certain project at the nonprofit. And then later on, I could maybe want to be like an executive director of like a state nonprofit, or like if I want to move into the national sphere, I could be like the VP or, you know, even the president of a nonprofit. So I think you can kind of look at it in terms of that way when it comes to like public interest in the nonprofit industry.
All right. I have one last question I want to extend to all three of you, which is, do you have any last advice for people interested in JD Advantage jobs? Any kind of certificates or anything they should look out for? Any kind of like volunteer or pro bono work that could be good? Like what if any last advice do you want to give to people looking for these kind of jobs?
I would say, and this isn't a requirement, but it's something that really helped me. Become an expert on something. You know, if JD Advantage is the way that you want to go, it's likely because you're really, really interested or passionate about something. I picked Section 230 because it's fascinating to me, and it's also an area where where there needs to be more experts. And so that's, I mean, as soon as I kind of became a Section 230 expert, that's how I started getting recognition, mostly on Twitter, and then that's how Google noticed me. So just figure out what you're passionate about, become an expert on that topic, and people will start to listen to you, and you will start to get recognized, and you'll start to stand out. And I think that will make your transition through JD Advantage type roles a lot easier.
Mine is write a really weird cover letter. Like research the company, research the people working in the company. If you can write a weird cover letter, you're gonna get noticed. And not weird as in like creepy or like whatever, but like find the hobbies that the people who are working in the company are doing and then kind of reference those, or like just do anything you can to stand out, because especially when you're applying through like LinkedIn or Indeed or ZipRecruiter or all of the horrible job searching websites, you have to do something to stand out. Like your JD is a lot, but it is also not enough. Like you need to differentiate yourself. So say why you're interested, like, I don't know, just go a little bit deeper. Feel free to be a little more creative, because these are not firm jobs. You're not going to be, in the courtroom necessarily. So feel free to be a little creative and get a little weird. Not scary weird, normal weird.
I guess kind of agreeing with Claire, passion is going to get you very far, especially if you are interested in like public interest or working at a nonprofit that works on a certain issue that you are interested in. And I know, for example, in getting my job I'm going to with ACLU, they saw like the prior experience that I've had, you know, like doing lobbying work and legislative research, and also when I was in law school, you know, having my criminal justice related internships. And so passion and, you know, showing people your other interests with your prior experience, getting experience. And again, like I said before, I don't really agree with unpaid internships or unpaid volunteering, but I mean, if you have the time and the energy to do that, then I would consider doing that, just to show people that, you know, this is something you really care about and that they can trust that you'll keep that same energy in the role.
All right. Well, I want to thank our three panelists. Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Tierra. And thank you, Claire. And also a thank you to Miracle for popping in for a little bit. I want to thank Jurist for allowing us to have this. Like I've said a couple of times, you can find all of us on Twitter and DM us there. We will be posting the recording of this to Jurist's YouTube channel, so you can go back and reference it there. I'll probably also, when we post that on the YouTube channel, include links to the great resources that Claire found and put together. So yeah, thank you everyone for attending.
Thank y'all. Thanks, Tim.